30 ideas for Dublin City Council, idea number. And the idea is to use new upcoming powers to crack down further on AirBnBs and other short-term lets. Now, Dublin City Council's area has over 3,500 full home Airbnbs. Now, personally, I don't really mind if someone lets out a spare room for a couple of weekends in summer, but it's not acceptable that full homes are let out for tourism when they could be real homes, alleviating the housing crisis that our city faces. Now, renting out a full home for a good chunk of the year is already illegal, but the existing rules, the way they're done, are kind of hard to enforce, and they use the planning system. When I lived here in this apartment complex in Kilmainham, for example, we used to have about 10 full home Airbnbs. Now, thankfully, that's down to zero or very few now, but the rules are still far from effective. The Greens in government nationally have been trying to come up with new rules to combat this problem. They were batted back by the European Commission 2 years ago, but updated rules should be published in the next few weeks, which hopefully should clear that hurdle. And those rules are going to require anyone who does a short-term let to register nationally, and they'll need a particular registration number to even be listed on sites like booking.com or Airbnb. I think these new rules could be a game changer. So what would they mean for incoming councillors in Dublin City Council? I think we should be doing three things. The first is reporting and pursuing individual cases, because councillors will often become aware just through our day-to-day work of units that are let out full-time on Airbnb. I've done this with a few already. I've had at least 5 of them shut down in the Liberties and returned to being full-time homes. But hopefully the new powers should make this much easier and might simply function more automatically. The second thing councillors can do is ensure that no sites or buildings that could be used for homes are directed towards new short-term lets. I did this already with a site on Thomas Street, for example, where there was an application to convert the building to an Airbnb instead of housing. I sent in an observation or an objection, and the arguments I used, I think it was the only observation that went in, were used by the planning officer to rule against it becoming an Airbnb. Councillors should keep up that sort of process. And thirdly, councillors can ensure that our development plan, which is the document that sets planning policy for the city, is tough on short-term lets. We fought to include a line saying that there would be a general presumption against the use of houses or apartments for short-term lets. Now, that was lobbied against heavily, but we held the line. And I think incoming councillors need to be sure that they're going to do the same in future development plans and make sure that short-term lets can't sneak through the planning system. So for me, these new rules that are coming soon are really, really welcome and much needed, but they will require ongoing effort and vigilance from councillors and council officials across the city. Lots of places around the world choose to encourage Airbnb. They want the tourism income. That's perfectly fine. Every city and every town should make their own choice. But I think here in Dublin City, we should make a very, very clear, strong preference and obligation that where there are homes, they are used for housing and not for temporary tourism.